Alright, you guys, welcome to this episode of the Outrun Show. Today we are talking about indoor versus outdoor training. Should you even train inside? Why do it?
And should you even train outside?
Ooh. Sense that harmony? There's an opinion in there for sure. Okay. Alright, so we are not biased on that subject, by the way. The value of homeschooling. We all went through homeschooling. There's a lot of talk about homeschooling, or not necessarily homeschooling, but going to private school versus public school. How do we solve the PE problem with parkour for both? Because both are atrocious, homeschool and public school, for physical activity and academia. Not real great right now. Training with a mask. And then at the end we will reveal what our parkour spirit animals are. So, all that and more on this wild episode of the Outrun Show. Space Tigers is how we're starting. With lasers and all kinds of stuff. There's a new Transformers out. Did you guys see that? Movie? On Netflix?
No.
Yeah, it's animation.
Yeah.
It's a little more true to the
OG show?
To the OG show, yeah. So check it out. Also has some very outrunning cyber feels to it.
I know Transformers kind of came first, but I feel like Transformers is just like crappy Gundam.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think that, what I would say about, and it was done better, obviously Avatar, but Avatar follows anime, obviously. It is not, unique to Nickelodeon. And Transformers was maybe sort of the, Western version of that. And I don't know, if someone out there is a big Transformers fan will be like, actually, it's based on... Okay, settle down. That was a fair assessment, Jesse.
Thanks.
It is a little bit of...
Well, Transformers was also geared towards kids.
Yes.
Gundam was geared towards adults, so...
Yes.
And they just built an actual Gundam.
They did.
Took its first step.
You should definitely...
Recently?
Yes, it happened. It is not small. What is it, 4 stories? 6 stories? Something like that? Yeah, it's not small.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
God, I love science and engineering.
I love Japan for that
cool.
reason.
Yeah.
They just have budgets for that stuff.
Oh yeah, we gotta go to Tokyo, and I'll take you guys to the Robo Cafe.
Akira?
It's just lasers and robots and robotic dinosaurs. It's
that's a lot.
Mind blowing.
Right,
if you take some sort of substance before you go in, you'll literally blow your mind. So I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah.
It's so cool though.
I'm ready to have a stroke.
It's did you ever go to Las Vegas and do one of those? Yeah, it's a stroke. It's
actually.
Did you ever go to Las Vegas and do one of those Excalibur shows where they serve you dinner and then people are in the stadium and they're Cullen says yes. Yeah, we've done one because we were
really?
It's like that. It's like that, but it's the robotic version. It is expensive, but it's the robotic version of that.
Yeah.
There's a show where robot dinosaurs fight each other. And lasers are just
that's pretty dope.
And it's loud music, and you get dinner, which is what matters to you.
Yes. I love strokes at dinner. Why would I not want that?
Yeah, there is an epilepsy seizure warning. A big sign when you enter the door. Don't go.
Yeah, I've had weird experiences with that because I've had both calming effects from it and right. So sometimes to me the pretty lights are calming and sometimes they're stroke-inducing, seizure-inducing things.
Dichotomy of drugs, right there.
Yeah.
All right.
I've always been sober around lights. So inside versus outside, there's this. For anyone who's new to the parkour community or just getting started, there has been this long contention about are you still doing parkour inside? Is it somehow soulless? Is it changing the way that the movement is too much that you aren't prepared to be outside? And isn't it really all about being outside? However, the irony is that not too far outside. People then question, should you do it in the woods? Is it still parkour if it's in the woods? Or is it something else? And then if you're in the city, that seems about right. That's enough outside. But if you're inside, that's not parkour. if you're inside a building.
I think I don't know if anybody's still, I wouldn't say it's contentious as much as just like it's a topic that like sometimes comes up and people have differing opinions on it. But I don't know if there's anybody that's really hardline on that.
Don't underestimate people's hardlineness, haterdom. Right.
Yeah. There's always outliers out there, right? That are like, no, I'm gonna.
Well, in the past, the parkour community was small enough that if people were training in a particular modality, there was communication around it, right? So you'd know if there was an outlier, or you'd hear of them, or this guy trains outside and outside only, and outside far enough that there aren't things that, like, in nature completely, and this guy trains in city, and these guys started a gym, so they don't really do it, right? Like, that was a real thing for a while, no?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that their opinion was like, oh, they don't do parkour because they made a gym. I think it was more along the lines of like, that doesn't match the true spirit of parkour's origins.
Yeah.
It's like, you get to define you, and all of us are in parkour, and if we all have like a general consensus that it doesn't really matter, then sorry, doesn't matter. That's how democracy works.
Even, Speed Airman had Bell doing flips in a gym.
In a gymnastics gym, yeah.
So, I don't know why that's ever been an issue.
I think it's because there is such a big difference in the stimulus of training in a facility that you've always gone to, and you know the surfaces of everything. You know what it's built, you know what, if it does shake, how it shakes, right? It's a very controlled environment, and outside things are different, right? You climb a brick wall and a brick slides out, right? Like, those things happen, and so the stimulus is pretty different. Also, there's no padding outside. And your hands, like, after you do a good outdoor session, your hands are tore up. You usually have at least 1 or 2 cuts from somewhere on your body.
Yeah,
and you're like hot and gross.
Or concrete.
Yeah, and you're dirty, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's just that there's such a difference in those two. And some people feel that one of them is better than the other because that's maybe all they had access to in their early years of training. Was, oh, well, I lived in, Topeka, Kansas. So my only option was a gymnastics gym. Or Fort Collins, yeah, because we don't want to build up. Or I grew up in a big city, in downtown Vancouver, BC, and there's tons of places to train, right? So I was always training outside or something like that.
Yeah. And is that outside different than training in nature?
I think so. Personally, I don't like training in nature just because where a gym is the most controlled, nature is the least controlled, right? And some of the things that I want to do are inherently high risk. And I think I've said it before, but like, I'm not a high risk guy anymore. Like,
right.
I value my able-bodiedness.
And so that's relative too, right? Like, high risk is relative.
It's very relative, yeah. But I would consider like a high risk to be anything that puts you out for longer than a couple of days, right? Like a rolled ankle is like, I rolled my ankle, a couple days later I'm back up. That's not really a high risk. But like, oh yeah, I biffed this jump, bashed my elbow, and now my elbow's all swollen up, so I can't do climb ups for a week. Like, that to me is a high risk thing. And obviously, any of the adults that are listening will be like, oh yeah, like a week out from doing stuff, that's a huge setback.
Right, and then a lot of the adults are thinking, I don't want to get injured doing this. And I think new adults have just as much of a false sense of confidence as a lot of the kids do. But now they have bodies that they're a bit out of touch with often. Or they'll just go hard to get whatever they think the achievement is, and the finesse isn't there, and that can lead to injury. So take it slow, whether you're in the gym or whether you're in a city
nature.
Or you're in nature, right?
Down by the river.
Now, when I came into parkour, I came into parkour working in gyms, like coming into gyms because that's what was available, 8 years ago or whatever, and that all felt very new to me. Like the edges and the very polished surfaces, and so there was a lot of precision that was being exacted as people would learn to sort of maximize the parts of the physical aspects in that environment. It felt a bit I was a little bit unfamiliar with those shapes. I remember one of my first courses like hyperflexing. I think in parkour people call it the ankle thingy, but I think the more sophisticated term for that is hyper dorsiflexion, sprain, and just did that jumping with the ball of my foot without using the heel for support on just a little plyo box. But I was in a hurry because I was doing a speed course with kids, and I just finished the course and then kind of walked it off, and then I was out for 2 weeks because I sprained my ankle.
You remember that time where you missed the vault box and just straight up horizontally just flew into a bar with your shin?
Yeah.
You have that scar?
Yeah, I do. Well, the scar is from, and now I
infection, right?
Yeah, well, what happens is that the tibia, the shin bone part of the tibia, doesn't get a lot of blood flow, and so I didn't have my Wim Hof knowledge that I have now. If it was me now, I would have. Well, I did also compete at our pro comp. What was it? The next day.
A long time ago, yeah.
Yeah, so that's really what did it for me. Was I had an injury, it started to swell, and I said I'm going to compete the next day anyway. I did it, and then it swelled like the size of a small baseball or golf
But
ball.
as we've talked about, that's the true spirit of competition.
Yes.
And I'm proud of you for that.
Yeah.
You came to win, dude.
Think about it. I did, and
you came
did.
to win.
I did win the division that I fell into.
I think you were in the open because you biffed.
Yes.
Right? Otherwise you would have been.
Because we had the rule that if anyone makes any mistake, any scratch, which is a mistake on the course, which at that point was touching the ground. Yeah, because we
it was missing it. If you missed a checkpoint, you're automatically lower than anybody who didn't.
Yes, and because I fell off of it, I missed the checkpoint. I remember the fall being the reason why.
I don't think you had a scratch on that course. I think your time was just slow because of the bail. Because you hit.
No, I got DQ'd from it. I remember it because I was so frustrated with being DQ'd because I think my time wasn't.
Well, you didn't get DQ'd because then you wouldn't have been able to.
Alright, I got
You got scratch?
Scratch.
Okay, yeah, maybe.
Right.
I don't remember, but.
I got the scratch. I remember that being the thing because I think my time was still okay. Anyway, long story short, kick the bar. Don't do that with your shin unless you're some crazy awesome Thai boxer.
You drop kicked a bar with your shin in front of you.
Yeah, it was rough. So it swelled up, and then I went to a week later to this the urgent care because it was changing colors and stuff, but not a good rainbow changing colors, but not like the lasers you were talking about, but actually hurt it. So
purple.
So the ER nurse or not the ER nurse, it was ER, but it was urgent care / ER. She's like, well, I can cut it and it'll heal faster, and I was like, cool, but I thought we were done with bloodletting, right? Wasn't that something we just did in the past? But I think she had a similar theory. So she cuts this X in it and just starts with her scalpel just straight scooping stuff out like it's Baskin Robbins of my shin. And I'm just I have pics I can share if you want. Anyway, and she sutures it up or whatever, and then so that again was me being an adult doing kid things and trying to come back too hard.
Well, that kind of stuff just happens, right? That's not really an environment thing. But
I'm convinced that was a supple sapling instead of a rail, right? That would not have I would not have incurred that kind of damage from it.
Yeah.
It was.
But if it was a concrete wall, it would have been.
That's
worse.
A concrete wall would have been worse. It would have taken. I don't know. It might have bled a little more, and I wouldn't have had to worry about it. Anyway, so indoor, outdoor. I'll try and bring it back on topic. My point was sorry for derailing. My point was that when I was a kiddo and working through teendom, I spent a lot of time training outside, and this was not under the discipline necessarily of parkour, but there was certainly under the spirit aspect of it, and maybe a little bit of discipline, but the time was spent in the woods for a lot. And then I grew up on a farm on barns and stuff like that, so there was a lot of that. I felt very comfortable with that. So when I started training indoors, this is the opposite. This phenomenon you'll see. So if you're biased towards any, you really will have trouble with the other. There are a lot of house cats in parkour, right? Would you guys not say? Guys who are super comfortable inside, you take them outside, and all of a sudden their skill level drops. Mine was the opposite as an adult, which was odd because I would come in and then we would train inside, and then I'd go outside with parkour athletes, and the further I got into nature, the more comfortable I was, and the less comfortable my peers were. So there was a bit of equaling out. And when I did Return to the Source with Wraith, like, I just really had a great time, and it felt very comfortable. But you could see a lot of people who were more used to training inside, or city folk, would be like, "Oh man, I don't want to jump on that rock. It's round. I don't even want to go by it. Like it's scary." And they wouldn't understand what was wet and what was dry, and there's stuff like that too that you don't get as much of inside.
Yeah. Shout out if you're super into like nature parkour and a more naturalist approach. Rafe Kelly has been pioneering that movement for a while now, and runs, like, I don't know if he's doing them now given the context of COVID, but he does workshops and stuff like that up in the Pacific Northwest. Definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, I would say Return to the Source was one of the most, was definitely a defining parkour moment for me, just to be able to be with that many people in the wilderness in almost like it was very wild.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah,
Sometimes you go with like outdoor people are like, well, I'm going, I'm bringing my boots and I got my gaiters on, and you're like, okay, that's not how I move in the wilderness, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not gonna go out with like my plaid shirt and it just like, breathe it all in.
It's true.
It's like I want to move through the in that way, and to be with a dozen people who had that intention and were skilled. That's cool.
So really, we have 3 breakouts of training arenas, if you will. We have indoor, custom made, built for parkour.
Yes.
We have urban, which is our parkour origins, right? Urban environments that were not necessarily built for parkour, but happen to be great for it. And then we have just like straight nature and the wildness of trees and rocks, which someone could argue is the true nature of parkour, but I would argue it's just the true nature of humanity.
Human beings.
So that one doesn't count. So those 3, I would say of the 3, if you have to pick one, it depends on your age. But I think if you're just getting into parkour, find a group, train outside. I've very rarely encountered an athlete who's trained outside for the majority of their time and come into a gym and sucked. But I found a lot of athletes who've trained in the gym and gone outside and sucked. Mm-hmm. Right? But I don't see the inverse very often, where somebody who's trained outside and just done some really disgusting things outside and really pushed themselves in an uncontrolled environment come into a controlled environment and not be able to excel. Right? Now they no longer have to worry, is this brick wall going to fall on me? Mm-hmm. Am I going to cut up my arm when I climb over the top of this? Right? And they come in and they maybe go a little wild sometimes. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, they're like, oh yeah, this is an area I know I can trust and everything.
Yeah, I think that's just because they're like the 1 out of 100 who survived outdoor training.
There is a bit of survivor complex.
We're talking survivor bias is what it. Yeah, I've just encountered it on another thread. We were talking about pro athletes versus in another conversation versus like people wanting to do what pro athletes do, and then like people bringing it up. Philip Chubb was bringing up that it was a lot of that survivor bias, right? Just because you see someone who's made it through training in a particular modality doesn't necessarily mean it's the best, because maybe they just endured it and then got it done. Like you're saying, the complex or bias. There's a bunch of those out there. So but is that how you started?
Yeah. Outdoor. Yeah, we both started outdoor.
Yeah. I mean, there wasn't anything.
Didn't see a gym until I was a man.
Yeah, I mean, we had like a local gymnastics facility that we'd go to on Friday nights when we could swing it. But for the most part, yeah, we were training outside every single time we were training. Yeah. Yeah,
I would argue that I started training in the wilderness or on farms, because there was literally, I mean, definitely the mentorship was not there, but the movements were there. You still did understanding surfaces and angles and jumping on, roofs. If that was a chicken coop, then that was a chicken coop instead of a cafe. Still a thing. And then running through woods and getting used to being on every surface not being stable. I mean, that's pretty much what it's like.
My problem with
breaks.
nature is that it's so hard to find a good spot in nature.
Well, this is
And the few spots that I found, I got kicked off of them. So,
Get off the
Devil's
entry.
Backbone and Loveland, I got kicked off several times and gotten a ticket for it. And it's so hard to find spots in nature that are really unique and that in Colorado that aren't rocky AF and sharp.
Sandy, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the few spots I found, it's very difficult to train. Either that or they're just so far out, you have to hike so far to get to them.
And then what Jesse was saying earlier was which should you pick? I might say availability is maybe a big lever in that too. In that, if you're in the
I would say
Pacific,
that's really the only lever. Right?
is what's available.
If it's not available, you can't pick it.
That's
so.
true. So I would say look at your surroundings, and if you don't have a gym, but you're in the Pacific Northwest or you're in the Appalachians or something like that, you're probably gonna have to train outside, especially if you're in a small town that just doesn't have a lot of like features, or very like suburban areas are really rough for decent things. And one of the best ways to know is a city going to be good for parkour is where there's a lot of grades. So grades are very that's when stuff has to be built on hills or on the sides of hills where you have these changes in grade or the angle of the surfaces. And so flat cities are typically the worst for parkour because I mean we're in Fort Collins. There's almost no hills. It's very flat, kind of like you know.
Well, there are very big hills, but we're in the foothills, so like the mountains come down and then it just
flattens out, right?
So we have the mountains to go to that has tons of elevation change and variation, but where the city is just.
But if you look at places like Seattle and Boston, where there is a lot of elevation change,
LA,
is LA pretty good like that, or is it pretty flat? Okay, I haven't been yet.
I haven't either.
Yeah, so that's good examples. Like we've had to have engineering done on those to handle those grades. Also, places built in the '60s are really good because at that time they were using a lot of concrete. So that's why we see a lot of kind of after World War II. You see. The idea that the materials that were used were a lot of concrete and brick to show, and this is in architecture, strong security, like things aren't going to get destroyed here. That's why a lot of banks and government institutions were made of concrete.
That called? Is that as brutalist architecture?
Brutalist architecture. Yep.
Yeah. So we like that.
We love it.
We love brutalism.
We love brutalism, and not only does it sound cool, it makes for really cool buildings, and that's a whole. Another tangent I could go on. But for the most part, if you're in a city that was sort of built up in the 60s, where you can find those buildings or schools and government buildings, they're usually really good to train on. Kind of cool. Not the bar stuff. So advantages, I would say, of training inside is that you do have a little more control. And then there are enough of these arenas inside now that you could sort of, live your parkour life. I'd say the spirit of it would be lacking, and maybe even some of the cultural aspect of it. But by just training inside, you could get by, but it's good to take it inside and out, and also be aware that you can't take that which is inside out and outside in. I think outside in's easier, like Jesse was saying earlier, but yeah, I would say as somebody who came from more outside stuff going in, it was a bit more intimidating. Like sometimes the shapes and heights and like the bars, like I wasn't used to a lot of bars.
Oh yeah, that's the thing too. If you're coming from outside in. Like any sort of swinging mechanics are going to be pretty new to you.
Yeah.
As well as probably like some of the more like complex, like strides over gaps, because you don't really encounter those sorts of heights for consecutive jumps in an urban environment, right? You have lots of ascents and you have lots of just singular gaps, so you're probably good at that. But like people who stride across the tops of the towers in our gym. That's probably something that you very rarely have encountered outside in an urban environment. So that would be pretty intimidating for you.
Yeah, that one was tough.
Yeah, depending on the environment, when you train outside, you're certainly going to miss moves.
Yeah.
They're just like in Fort Collins, there is no swinging outside.
Yeah.
And underbars are like that too. And then I even think to a certain degree, like things like Kong to Cat, where you're comboing two moves, where the spacing and the height of the two obstacles is super important. You're gonna miss those. So.
So Justin, just to get your feels, what are the things that you would train? You would go to either element for? I'm tapping on my fingers. But
I almost go to the gym for all of them. I think honestly, I just think the gym is It's just easier to train. You don't have to worry about people watching you, getting kicked off of stuff. You don't have to worry about breaking shit. You don't have to worry about the surfaces being unpredictable.
Hey, you've tapped the same finger for all of this.
So this is outdoor, right? Oh, this is indoor. This is indoor. This is indoor.
I thought it was like breaking
and
stuff.
Then,
if you hit different
but
knuckles.
I do like outdoor because it really does challenge you. You have to think, and you have to be very creative because the moves that you're throwing indoors are usually on mats or off a surface that you're super comfortable with. So when you go outdoor, I feel like you have to push the style and creative side a little bit
Outdoor
more.
urban.
Yeah, outdoor urban. Yes, sorry. So I do like I like it, and for filming outdoors, really fun. It's and going to new places, that's important. Nature, nature's just so hard to find a spot to train on. When we went to Seattle, that was the first time I ever realized that you actually could swing on a tree. In Colorado, unless you've sanded it down, it's just pine trees are the worst to swing on.
And evergreens,
They're super fragile, and the bark is rough. And
where there's more moisture, you'll see that oftentimes the training like surfaces are better. In Colorado, it's very dry, very the altitude's very high, and virtually everything on the ground is trying to stab you.
Yeah.
And I didn't expect that when I came out here, but it is the case. In the Pacific Northwest, or even in the Midwest, or parts of the South,
in the lowlands.
In the lowlands, it's quite cushy. Like, you're gonna fall in the bed of ferns, and you'll be fine.
I literally thought I could fall from a tree and do the
And then, yes, the back and forth fall.
The space avatar fall down the trees, and then that's the first time I also saw trees with branches that were huge, but only a foot off the ground, and they would go up, horizontally out. That's just so
this
alien.
tree doesn't have natural predators.
Yes, humans doing parkour.
So I really did enjoy doing parkour out there, but parkour outside in Colorado is just rough.
Yeah, I think it does take it. It's pointy
rocks. Rocks are really your Colorado.
It's the Rocky Mountains for a reason.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So let's pivot real quick into, we've got a lot of chaos going on with the school year, and people are thinking about, do we pull our kids out of school? I know we have a lot of kids whose parents have decided to homeschool, go to charter schools, or be remote with public schools. We have other states where everybody's just staying home. We have some states where stuff's shut down, but other people are going into school. We thought we'd chime in just with our own experiences. I'm not necessarily going to say we're going to form strong opinions on this because everything's evolving, but people should know right now, if you're considering pulling kiddo out and homeschooling them, or sending them to charter, or sending them to private school, or sending them into public school again, or changing, that we have those experiences. I didn't go straight through public school. I went through private school. I went through public school, and my family tried homeschooling as well. Just because we're parkour misfits, and we just don't fit in. And I think this would tie back to what our true passion is, which is not necessarily, the sword we're going to fall on is the right to move. Right? I mean, that's really where, that's where we're trying to tie ourselves to a purpose. It's, developing movement with people through their life, not just making it permissible to do in one or two places.
Yeah.
So I'll just start because I suggested the topic. I went to public school in early elementary, and then somewhere in mid elementary elementary that wasn't working. So in second grade or something, I ended up in private school. It was a private school for I don't know if there was an exact it was basically, there was a tech guy in the city I was in, and he's like, I'm gonna build my own private school. So they have the alternative teaching motives, but this guy was just basically an early, almost Silicon Valley style guy who was like, I'm gonna build a school and experiment with that. It was, the conspiracy was that he really just wanted the land that the school had to be built on, and it was zoned for schools, so he bought it that way and ran it for a couple of years and then shut it down, which did happen, so I don't know how much the conspiracy was. But that's a good point, is that when we focus on remember, I've been to a bunch of private schools, and I've been around private schools as startups in Fort Collins, and I will tell you, this is a startup. Most private schools, unless you're talking about an institution that's been around for a very long time, they're business startups. Mm-hmm. So just know that when you put your kid in a new school or in a private school, depending on the laws of where you are, or charter school, you're putting your kid in an experiment. It is a startup. And while public school may feel stale, in my experience,
it's also stable.
It's stable. Stable and stale, or super risky business start. And you know how most startups turn out. Most of them fail. So I ended up with some benefits in that I had really my ability to communicate was helped. I was dealing with a group of mature peers who were focused on education and maybe selected for in that way because of the nature of the school that I went to. I was introduced to technology early. Like we had Windows, but while other kids were sitting in public school with the green and black screens, we were rocking Windows and playing Oregon Trail, right? In the 90s, and yeah, so I knew all of these apps a little bit before I got into school, and that put me ahead. So that exposure to technology was really great. But my fundamentals were very lacking. Some things in like English and math were not really great because the standards aren't the same, and the way that they test and bring teachers in aren't the same. We put our daughter in a school that was like this.
I'm interested though, like what were the differences in the physical education side of each?
That's another very good point. So public school was the traditional, dodgeball. You show up, a couple times a week for PE and do the traditional, we're gonna learn basketball and then we learn tennis and then you learn your sports, and then you do a pull-up test and you do those sort of things. In the private environment and the alternative schools I went to, there was no physical education. It was you had to meet state requirements for PE, so kids had to basically be put in a room and be given balls or something to run around for a little bit. Yeah. But there was literally no physical education and no encouragement of that. But we did get recess time that was a little more frequent, which was nice, and that was time outside to explore a little bit. So that was a big difference. And then when I got to high school, I went back into the public system, but I went into the an alternative school, which was half days, Fridays off. It was, designed for kids who were trying to work through school and stuff too. And that one was just write down on a piece of paper. I love that school, but I'm just saying that one was just write down on a piece of paper how you met your PE requirement, because people had real lives they were trying to live out. A lot of them were living independently or supporting their families, so they were just trying to get that organized. No PE. It was, did you do something outside? Yes, write it down. Requirement met.
Yeah.
Huh.
So Fort Collins, I think, does a really good job, and so we get a lot of high schoolers for the adventure PE, and so just that alone, because I didn't go to high school in Fort Collins, and I didn't go to public school. Just that alone makes me want to send my kid, when I have him, to a public high school, and they also have things like shop and engineering class. And those more abstract things. Do they even do welding? I feel like they do welding in high school. Those are things that I've never had a chance in private school because maybe they just couldn't afford it. But
I just don't think it was a focus.
Yeah. So
yeah, I mean
that alone would be worth it for me to do an adventure PE class where they do climbing and do parkour and who knows what else they do in adventure
skiing.
PE. They do skiing? Oh my gosh, that sells it for me right there. Just access to far more things.
We did a ski trip and a canoeing trip, but it wasn't regular stuff in high school. So.
But those are one-off field trips, right? Whereas I think the Poudre School District's Adventure PE program is built with those as a regular activity.
Yeah.
They're not hey, we've got a couple extra, $100 in the budget. Let's see if we can swing a mountain trip or something like that.
Right.
It's not those field trips. They're every semester that's in the winter gets a ski trip.
Nice.
And so they're built in on those programs, and now thanks to our hard work, we're built in on that schedule too.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
That's really something you drove though. I don't know if I had a ton to do with that.
Wow.
That's really cool.
You own the gym, so. The team succeeds, man. Rising tide raises all ships.
Exactly.
So
I'm sure that we take credit for each other's efforts all the time.
Yeah, as we should. But yeah, no, I think in the Adventure PE program, when I first heard about it, the entire premise was, let's introduce kids to non-traditional sports that they're not going to be exposed to because of socioeconomic reasons or just time and availability. right? Like maybe the kids just don't have time to go up to the mountains and ski because they're working a job supporting their family, right? And the idea is that they still deserve to be exposed to those non-traditional sports because that might be their thing.
Yeah.
Right? And Justin and I's experience with PE and sports growing up was very traditional sports, right? It was the classic, like, this week we're doing football, and then we're doing tennis, and then we're doing soccer, and then we do hockey, right? And you just go through the sports, and we were like, these all, if you're a sports guy, I love you, I'm not bashing sports, but we were of the opinion that they sucked, because we're not rule followers. I'm definitely not a rule follower. In fact, I hate rules, but I like making them. It's kind of weird.
It is.
But yeah, so, and I think that if you're homeschooling, that needs to be a priority for you. It's so easy to be like, well, my kid's doing well in math, my kid's doing well in English and literature, he's doing well in history and all of these things, but he or she has no physical outlet. You are missing a huge component of your child's education
and development overall.
And development, yeah. I mean, the biological aspects aside, it's so important for your health and happiness to be moving and doing something physically that you enjoy. So the extent has to be, if we extrapolate that has to apply to your kids even more.
Absolutely. For me, if I had discovered it, which I think my genetics probably led me to it regardless, I was going to find movement in whatever capacity. It's move or die. Like, it's just that simple. If you take movement from me, I will go quick.
Well, and we see very often parkour athletes who get injured and are bedridden, right, or home ridden, really.
Spiral.
They spiral. They get very depressive, right? Some of them actually go into depression, right, and then have to see a doctor, and that's how important it is for them. And I'm not saying that your kid needs to be a parkour athlete, right? Everybody in this room plays a lot of video games, and we all love computers and technology
and hate them,
and we hate the effects of them, sometimes, but we also know that we have a physical hobby, and we have a tech hobby, and they aren't separate. The idea that some kids are athletic jocks and they do that stuff and then other kids are nerdy is a myth. No kid exists like that except kids whose parents haven't introduced them to the right stimulus or the right physical outlet, or vice versa, right? If your kid always does sports, you just haven't introduced him to the right video game.
Yeah.
And I think everybody needs technology and needs to understand it. You do not afford the luxury in this day and age to say technology is evil and I'm just going to ignore it. The same way that you don't get to say physical activity is pointless because I just work in IT. Mm-hmm. You have to have both of them. They are not separate. It's you can't read, but then not understand the English language. They connect to each other. They are the same thing. They make you a whole human.
Yeah. And movement intellectualism is a real thing. I think that's what hits the difference in sometimes with sports, is that movement for discovery and experience and intellectualism, in my opinion, when you look at the movement arts, is a different type. It's you could still be a designer and be interested in technology, or you could be a hardcore back-end engineer who just wants to, dial in code, right? Wants to see the mechanism of it work, and another person would be an engineer who wants to see the design expressed. And sports just does not quench that thirst for everybody, for all of humanity. And so the other thing I draw up to that is that, parents should be aware. As someone, I did homeschooling too. It was maybe there was a nice little burst of this is novel, and I was learning some things. My mom was getting to explain some things to me that she always wanted to try and explain and introduce me to some things and take me to museums and do stuff like that. But very quickly I reached the end of her wise in academia. And even if you have someone who's a parent who's a teacher, they're still a generalist to a certain degree, right? If you're going to try and take some kid K through 12, this is an artful dance, right? I mean, you have to be really good at at the right amount, right dose of exposure and repetition and structure and freedom that sometimes you just get when you have a bunch of different teachers. Like you kind of just happen to fill the gap. It's like eating a broad diet of whole foods, right? You intentfully you may not meet what's really needed through picking individual foods, but if you have a broad swath, you just there's some insurance there that you're gonna be finding, like you were saying, have that discoverability. Like you would have loved to have been more exposed to more engineering in your school, but that wasn't your school's focus.
No.
What was your school's focus?
Religion.
Yes.
that was
the right
your
answer?
school.
No. He says fearfully. Right. So exactly. I mean, like if you're gonna homeschool and you're gonna do those things, I feel like that a few types of people come to mind. One type of parent is very interested in sort of breaking the system. They're frustrated with it, and they're like, I'm going to give this a stab. And that's the way my mom was. And she was like, look, it's like these people can't teach my kid because my kid is special, right? And that's her feeling, and I endorse it.
And she may very well be right.
May very well be right.
Well, yeah,
exactly.
I feel like that's how our mom was too.
And they're like, so I'm gonna put him in an environment where he can succeed the most. And you know, I think that in all honesty, it's just remove barriers when possible and make me feel safe and give me enough exposure to find what I'm really interested in, and I'll pursue it naturally. That's what I think most kids are like. And if you have a kid who's like not motivated around that, they either haven't found the right thing, or they might be a little bit apathetic. They might just be more chill, and there's nothing wrong with that. They just haven't found their passion yet. But I'm trying to force it down them, right? Let it be their choice and let them pursue the happiness, or they'll blame it on you later on. No problem with it. There's another type of parent who really believes that they've figured stuff out, that they know, and that they want to live vicariously through their kids. And they want to say, no, I think this is the way you should learn, and this is the truth, so I'm going to put you in a school that teaches you that. And I think that tends to be more isolationist, and there are big risks behind that. And I almost never see people grow up and then be like, oh, that's what I wanted. Like my daughter did a little bit of that, and with Chinese, I sent her to Chinese school, let her try it out, and then we moved on, right? So hopefully she picks it up later on, and it's good. But my wife went to religious schools as well, and then was homeschooled from a religious perspective, and just that did not have the desired outcome that parents were going for with that, especially if you know my wife now. So it did not stop the tattoos and the piercings and the hair coloring and the
pants wearing.
The pants wearing. Exactly, even. So the shenanigans, right? So that's a risk that you take. So if you're a parent thinking about that and you're thinking you've got the answer, I can tell you don't. Because the kid has the answer.
Nobody has the answer. Yeah,
right.
I love that. The kid has the answer, right? You have to dig it out of them, though, and you have to provide all the opportunities for them to discover it. Because really, the most beautiful thing is when a kid finds their passion and is able then to explore that with your help, right? That I think is so cool. And yeah, if you have an apathetic kid, just keep going. I'm sorry, but keep going, right? You may be like, I put this kid in everything. I've given him everything.
Right.
You know, and that parent is an amazing parent, because they're like, I'm just gonna, you know what? We're gonna do basket weaving. We're gonna do scuba. We're gonna do free diving. We're gonna do fashion design. We're gonna friggin' do everything until finally, little Travis finds something that he just connects with.
Right. And I just think that there is some judgment in that, though, too. Like, that's the best, like, if you're going to pick a parental type that I would try and cast upon people. And we see a lot of parents. Just saying, this doesn't come from not, we're not in the school system, but if you go one sort of degree away.
We have a lot of parents.
You have a lot of parents.
Yep.
You guys have a lot of parents. And so you've tried different approaches out. It's like, if you... Like, the judgment around what your kid should be doing is oftentimes so wrong. Like, if my parents would have taken the approach of, this is what you should be doing, the few things they said I should do, I didn't do anyway. But if they would have had that total approach of control, they would have just been delaying the inevitable of how I was going to act and do. And I probably, if they hadn't tried to give me opportunities and cycle me through schools, I would have not done well at all. I mean, I would have found a way, but it would have been more painful. So
you just suffered longer.
So
I would have suffered longer.
The two things that I like, so from our dad and our mom, our dad, he always let us do things that I don't think he would ever let us do. Like he would, we got into Pokemon really early on, and our dad hated Pokemon, but he would go to the movies and watch it with us the first 20 minutes.
Why did he hate Pokemon?
Because he just wasn't that. Like he's just not a cartoon guy.
He's very American dad.
Yeah. But he so he hated Pokemon. But he tried to get, he let us to have a shot. He'd get his Pokemon cards. He'd go to the movie theater and watch it for 10 minutes as long as he could, and then he would just go sneak to another movie theater. But I also had this haircut. I had like 3 mohawks when I was young, and
the triple hawk.
Triple hawk.
I like it.
And I asked him the other a couple of years ago. I was like, "Why did you let me do that?" Because I look back and I'm embarrassed for myself. And I said, "Why did you let me?" He was like, "Of course I had to let you do that, because if I told you how to wear your hair, you were just gonna be rebellious and you just go off and you'd never listen to me." And so he was being a little, was that Littlefinger? Strategy, man.
He was letting us have our like uniqueness, so that when he did have to draw a line, he was able to, right? Like that's really the thing, is like he draw a line, and I
really appreciate that about him, because I know, oh my gosh, I don't know how he stood through that Pokemon 2000
obsession,
watching Ash Ketchum. And then on our mom's side, she was always really passionate about the weirdest things. She's just like, everything she did, she was excited about. And so I think we picked that up from her, and that she's just excited to do roofing, even though she never really did the roofing part. She was like, it's so cool. And it's like, it's just stuff that people wouldn't normally be excited about or be happy to be passionate about. So she did that really well, I think. And I think that's why we ended up not being too apathetic about stuff. So, and it even I think maybe it even helped us be more volatile towards traditional sports and pushed us towards parkour, because it just apathy wasn't really an option with her, right?
It's not a value.
You either had to just extremely dislike it or you had to love it.
Yeah.
You had to have a polarized position on.
Yeah, which I definitely think maybe bit us a bit in the butt.
I see that in you guys. That's so crazy. When we talk about the polarization, it helps you and it hurts you quite a bit.
Yeah, it's definitely like, I think it helped a lot in discovering like what it is that we find passion for. Right. But it then hurt us when it came to connecting with somebody outside of that realm.
Yeah. And taste. Like your taste is real. You guys, if you guys were to meet these guys, you'd know they have really refined taste. And I'm a little more like, cool, like anything is beautiful at some level.
Yes. Yeah, you can talk to a lot of people about these wide range of topics and go deep. Whereas when I was dating in high school, if I had to talk to my girlfriend's parents about football, I was off.
You're just like,
I was just like, get me out of this conversation.
Yeah, that is hard. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's value to both, because I've certainly taken from you guys some of the, all right, I'm going to spend a little more time on refining my tastes on things. And I do love that, because for me, it helps me go further, right? If I can find the value in sort of like, a laissez-faire approach to critiques, then once I really understand why I like something, early when I built my house, that was a big project, and I was trying to drag Justin in because I knew he had strong opinions about paint colors, and he was just like, "Oh no, you just need to just look at this, just take a position, have an opinion on it." And I was like, "What, dude? You have good taste. Just tell me what to do." And then later on, I just like spent enough time to develop my own tastes on, and now as you create a monster, I'm even pickier than you. On a lot of things.
Way figure than me now.
A lot of things.
He's gone the other way. We pushed him too far.
You've gone too far.
Well, remember those houses he was looking at?
Oh
my Lord.
But you're welcome.
Well, yes, but this is okay. Thank you. First of all, thank you for they gave me a really hard time when I put money down on a house that was just didn't meet the expectations.
It's mediocre.
It's mediocre in their views, but for a lot of people it'd be amazing. But for what we appreciated, there might have been more. And they pushed me really hard to change, and that's one thing that I have that I know is genetic, and I just because it just feels like, I don't remember being taught this, but just changing my position. Like I can change my position and adapt really well, and I know that that's not something that I can't imagine I picked that up in school, other than just one of those survived the thing instead of learned it sort of things. But I said, okay, fine. So I pull the money out of this property that, I've told my wife we're going to buy, and anybody who's in a relationship knows that's a big deal. We visited it, everyone's seen it, we've tasted it.
She's emotionally attached to it.
She's emotionally attached to it. And I'm like, nope, doesn't have rooftop patio. They're right. Like $400,000 per house doesn't have rooftop patio. That's ridiculous. So we're out. And
Candy's like,
she's like, what? My wife was like, what are you talking about? I'm like, no, we'll find better. Don't worry. And eventually we did. And ended up with the rooftop patio. So it worked out. I developed some taste around it. No, very strong opinions. But that's good because that seeps back into our gyms and the experience for our members too. They come in and they're going to get that. They benefit from that. Yeah. And we're not really rough on what their houses look like at all. So it doesn't really matter to us. We don't. Don't care. This is about our individual.
Because when they come to the gym, it's all our house.
Right? It's all our house. Come in.
I think sometimes I want people to think that the aesthetic choices that I make are almost ugly to a degree.
So they don't pick it?
So they don't pick it.
This is that hipster mentality where it's like you have to be
the hipster of all.
The hipster bias? Right, yeah. The hipster bias.
I don't want people
You don't want to share. You want to be unique. That's cool.
I just don't want them to like my things. Because they're my things.
Yeah, that's very...
That's so weird.
At the end of this episode, we were going to talk about what your parkour spirit animal might be. And that sounds very... I might have to move towards like some sort of like squirrel gathering animal because... There's a... Mine. So I feel like that's a thing. Okay, anyway. So I should say too that my parents were intellectuals. We always placed a very high value on intellectualism, meaning like learning new things and discovering the reasons why things worked and being open-minded, and that was always a very big value that we had. And so that helped me understand things that were novel. Probably, they never told me not to do things in academia, which I think was probably the biggest thing that was helpful. And they were willing to shuffle me around to a bunch of different schools, from private to public, back to public again, and just accommodate as their budget went down, and budget tolerance went down, which I feel like happens for parents as they get older. Like your willingness to spend money on your kids' education tends to go down a little bit until you go to college and you throw everything at it apparently. But I didn't do that. But when I wanted to go to China, like I was like, I'm going to China. My parents were never like, they're like, that's cool, you should go. My parents were like, don't go. Like,
really?
But never. They were like, yeah, it's great, go.
Oh, okay. You said so they encouraged you to go.
Yeah, always were like, just go to China. Sounds like a good idea. And I was all through high school, and then I left. And when I bought a one-way ticket, they didn't say anything to me about it.
Probably because they were like, oh my god,
he's gone. This kid is gone. It's too much. Yeah, so that was a good thing.
Chucking chickens over buildings.
Yeah, they're like, God, you know how much these cost us in chickens alone? Chucking them over the barn.
Exactly.
The chicken chuck.
It's in the winter, so they're frozen. It's fine. So then I think that as I look back on it, my wife and I were having the debate about what we do with Nova, our daughter who's 9. I'm like, do we put her in public school or do we put her in a charter where she could be on site? Do we do remote or static, or not remote, static training? Is that what that would be? I'm thinking too much about lifting and stuff. Yeah. Do we do remote or put her back into school? And I thought to myself, I was like, man, what is it that I really liked about my parents' approach to parenting me when they were doing it right? Because we all have opportunities on the other side too, I'm sure. But they they made the decisions my decision. So even if they were going to make a decision, they would make that decision my decision. When I left each individual school, they're like, we think you should go to this school or we think you should go to that school, but ultimately you have to be okay with this. Mm-hmm. And then I was allowed to choose.
That's pretty intense.
In every transition.
It's intense.
So leaving private to go to public. Well,
too afraid to change.
They did like give me some incentive. They were like, no, we spend a lot of money on private school. If you go to public, we'd have some extra expendable money that we could probably make a run to Toys R Us. Right? I do remember that conversation. There was a little bit of bribing.
Okay.
But they always felt that compulsion to have me have buy-in. I think that was a really big deal, right? Because they could have just been like, no, public school is expensive or private school is expensive. You're going to public.
Yeah.
But instead they were like, hey, let's give it a shot and we'll have some extra cash, so we'll do it. We know you're going to miss your friends or whatever, so we'll do a run to find some material way to short-term meet your needs. Right. So with Nova, we just asked her. We said, hey, actually, what do you want to do? Do you want to do remote school or do you want to do public school? And it came down to really just, the opportunity to do new things and meet new teachers and new students, and that's what she picked. And we learned something about her. She doesn't like always having the consistency.
Yep.
She would rather mix it up, shuffle it up, and try a new deck. And so she, we
It's that Pokemon card, man. It's that
Pokemon.
addiction.
You want to act like you grew out of that, but you have tattoos too, so don't,
No, yeah. Oh,
Just one.
Fully support it. Fully support it.
Yeah.
Always want new things. The grass is always greener.
Yeah, no, in fact,
that.
I'm pretty sure in my safe at home I still have a
Unopened?
$400 Charizard card.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Don't
It's
tell
not
them where
graded.
you live
It's not
because all the
graded, though,
Pokemon
so-
fans will come and break in your house and try and take
It's not the $40,000 one, but
Man.
it's in good shape.
So then I think that the gem that I would take from this, not to steal the summary on it, is just that involve your kids in that decision and try not to, try to learn from their choices that they're making in that moment, not, push them one direction super hard, right? See what they say. Ask them. You want them to go to private school? You want them to go to a charter school? You've never been to it. We have a lot of parents who are never been to a Catholic school before, and they're like, you want to send your kid to Catholic school? And a lot of people aren't even Catholic. And you're just like, why don't you ask your kid and explain to them what that environment is going to be like? And if you're moving out from this is what I observe about the private schools, is they're very sheltered and their experience is controlled and they're safe. And when you go to public school, that's a bit like being thrown into the wild, right? It definitely felt like that to me for some of the experiences. And others it didn't. So learn what the experience is like there. Go visit the school, see what that experience is going to be like. Ask parents and students before you make a decision like that. Don't just do it based off what the critical mass of Facebook friends you have say.
Yeah. Well, and parents are going to know their kids the best, right? So even...
That's the goal.
I think at some point, asking your 6-year-old whether they want to go to a private school or a charter or a public school is kind of irrelevant, right? The 6-year-old doesn't know the difference.
Yeah, no, you're right.
So at some point, you do have to make that decision. Parents have to make that decision for their kid.
Yeah.
And that's fine. You just... Our parents were just very intuitive around what we would like. They knew our personalities. They knew what we might shift towards. But I still distinctly remember times in high school where our mom put us both in football. Actually, she put Justin in football. She said each of us had to do at least 1 year of a traditional sport in high school, even though by that time we had both decided parkour was our sport. Something about teamwork.
Which you're still working on.
Isn't everybody we're great. So it's irrelevant,
right? But you're not a lock in step, right? You could have thrown you in all the team sports you want. You guys aren't fall into the ranks.
No,
people.
I'm not, right? And so I remember she put us in football. I was in for about half the season, and I was like, I don't like this, and I told her, I was like, I don't want to do this. She was like, you have to do it, and it was my first real step out of I'm a big kid now. And I just went to the coach and I said I quit. And I gave him my gear. And he was like, okay. And then this was not good of me, but I didn't even tell my mom. I was just like, nope, I'm not doing football anymore. Mm-hmm. But I think that was important for me as a kid because I was like, I know parkour is my thing. Stop trying to force me to do something else. I know what I want now. And I'm done. I don't think she was like, football might be your sport. You should try it. She was like, it's important to work with a team. And I was like, I'll work with a team when I get a job, and I have to work with the team because that's what growing up is, right? But I was like, I'm not a big guy. I don't want to get hit by 200-pound farmers.
Yeah, why are these kids 200 pounds in 8th grade?
I don't get it.
Who knows?
But I didn't want to get hit by that, and I was like, this isn't fun for me. Every time I come to practice, I hate it.
Oh yeah,
concussions.
I hate it every
time. My headaches.
Your chronic headaches. Yeah.
So. Yeah, so I think
getting hit by goats is what did it for me.
But to wrap that up, I think where my parents went really right around that was I made that decision, and there was no punitive action after. My mom easily could have come around and been like, all right, fine, you want to make big kid decisions, then you're grounded, right?
You're moving out.
She didn't. She said, I heard that you quit football, and I said, yeah, I didn't like it. I hated every second of it. Mm. And she was like, okay. And she made it very clear she wasn't happy with that decision, but she was like, all right, that's your decision. Fine, you go out, you do your thing.
Yeah, I definitely... No,
you can see it.
I even see the more reinforcement of you either have to really hate it or you have to love it with her. It was... Oh, that's fun.
So yeah, if a parent, if your kid makes that kind of decision, I won't tell anybody how to parent, but, look at it. It may just be your kids found their thing and they want to do more of that thing. In which case, good on you. They found it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do the explorative phase anymore. So that's cool.
That is very interesting. Okay, with that, let's
Spirit animals.
Yeah, parkour spirit animal. This is often sometimes joked about in the parkour community as to like what animal you closely relate to in nature. We've definitely had some people be tied to different animals, but I want to make some guesses because I think the character of the animal, I think it's a fun exercise. Okay, and it's just meant to be lighthearted. So, do you guys have you made a selection already? Otherwise, I have some assessments.
I'm really bad at this. Like this.
I like it, so that's why you can
you are
just be subject to it.
attributing like personality characteristics to an animal that you've never really interacted with. Yeah. So there is some
maybe I just don't have enough interaction.
There's metaphors a lot.
There's a lot of animals. The one that came up, it wasn't really actually my decision, was mountain goat.
Oh, that's you got mountain goat?
No, for me.
Oh, yeah. For Jesse.
Yeah, Dom will tell you that. Olaf will tell you that.
Yes,
that's a
totally see that.
And yeah, if I were to like attribute personality things to it, it's like mountain goats sometimes just like want to climb on something, and then they stand up there and you're just like, I'm up here. And you're like, but why goat? Why'd you get up there? And they're like, because I can.
Why goat?
Why? And they're just like, because I could. Look cool. And that's definitely me. Like sometimes I'm just like, I want to build that. And then like, my garage for a week turns into like a workshop. Yeah. And then I build it. And Carly's like, why'd you build that? And I was like, well, look cool. Want to build it. Want to try my hand. Ended up messing it up, but it's cool.
Well, I can build on that one. I was going to say that because everyone who does parkour is like, oh, I'm a monkey, right? Like that's a super common one to go to, but I really felt like Jesse had more monkey personality traits than most. Like I would actually put him potentially in that category where it's like
that video of that. There's the what is it? It's a little baby tiger and there's the monkey and he's
that's a gibbon.
Oh yeah, the gibbon and
the gibbon and the tiger.
He's like annoying the tiger. Jesse is the monkey, dude.
Just there's a gibbon.
And just
they're different.
Tiger. And I'm just sitting here and it's like, oh my god.
Apes don't have tails. So we gotta be right.
You know that New World monkeys, Old World monkeys?
Okay, alright.
Boy, I'm in.
You're in deep with monkeys. I got you. Alright, so but you're right. That's the gibbon, we'll say monkey, right? For easier reference, you're right. We'll do that. So I think that I see that as characteristics because he's like, and maybe you can relate to this too, like you have to identify, like, everybody kind of likes, well, not everybody likes to swing on things, but we do. And so you might feel you're tied to that. But the personality traits of like mischievous, but I think, you're right, I think mountain goat might be a little better because it's like, we'll eat anything.
Stubborn.
And then likes...
kind of stubborn.
And stubborn, but likes tricks. But is playful. Stubborn but playful. Likes to stand on things and sit on things that are above everyone else in a room. And will chew on most foods. Not super picky for food.
True.
Yep. And just likes... Doesn't mind being alone, but does hang out with the herd. Right? But it's kind of super common to see a mountain goat alone. Just not doing... Like, what did he stand on that rock for?
Yeah, I just watched a Reddit video where it was like it starts out and there's like a goat and he's like in this little cave and he like lays down and he stands up and he kind of scratches at something and then he lays back down and then the camera zooms out and the little cave is actually on the side of like a 300-foot high cliff. It
like
just keeps zooming out and it's just like the cave's like here and it's just like the ground's like way down here and the goat's just in the cave. And it's like... Goats find themselves in that situation all the time, and I find I do that too. Where like sometimes I find a project that I'm really interested in, I dive in deep, like my office remodel at home.
Or your office remodel at the gym is literally a cave at height, hidden in a hole, and you're compelled to hide in that little like cove.
I needed quiet alone to do my work.
But you're goats. You're still mischievous. It's like you want quiet, but you create chaos.
As a result of that,
or just in parallel, you might just go create some chaos so you can be in quiet and you've left chaos and things disturbed, right? So if you have, I'd say those are goat.
So mountain goat.
Yeah.
I'm an ibex.
Yeah, I'll go with the ibex. Ibex is a solid, cool goat.
So good.
I think Justin, for I think that you find, because we all have pretty not polarized characteristics, but we're like. There's differences, so you might better align yourself with one of these three parkour animals. It could definitely be you. So I think for Justin, I've always thought like cat, but now I'm looking for like something that collects things like a squirrel, because
That my things.
yeah, you love things. You love shiny things, and they have to be
There's a
perfect,
hole in this,
and they have to be organized in your way.
That shiny.
And you don't like to share those shiny things. You do, but you will give other people gifts. So I don't know if I don't know what animal is a gift giving.
Cats. Cats do give gifts.
Yeah. See, that's the other one. It's like cat. Like cat was definitely. I was gonna originally say cat. I was gonna say monkey cat was what I was going for, but now I think we might need to we'll be on the hunt for another animal.
I was gonna go with owl.
Owl.
They're usually pretty solitary. They always have the same look on their face, like they're judging you. like an owl's just like.
Yep. Just looking.
Collect shiny things.
Collect shiny things. I mean, raccoons do this too, but.
That's true.
And they like the night.
Raccoons are pretty awesome.
So.
They're hilarious.
What about like a solid red panda?
Do they collect things?
Those red pandas?
Try not to be as clumsy as those.
The red pandas? Are they clumsy?
They're super clumsy.
These are ridiculous.
They're adorable.
You are adorable and a bit aloof.
They get surprised a lot too.
And they can do
a lot.
Do you get surprised a lot? I feel
Yeah, and then they stand up.
like that. They do muscle ups though. I've seen videos of those pandas doing muscle ups. That's pretty impressive.
I'm not that good at muscle.
And they're kind of a magical little creature. I don't know if their compulsion is to collect things. So the traits we're looking for are highly particular, collects things, is giving, but I just feel like that you're a bit of a house cat in your nature, right? Sometimes you see things and it's in a spot you don't like it, so you just knock it off the table, like that kind of thing is very much a trait.
Definitely doesn't. I don't like it.
Does not like it. Knocks it off the table. You won't participate.
He's like an ocelot.
An ocelot. Oh, that's really like an archer.
Fancy house cat, yeah.
Right. Those are clearly not domesticated animals, sir. An ocelot? They're domestic? Well, no way. I mean, people try to bring them in houses.
They're exotic, but
exotic domestic pet. Okay,
domestic.
yeah. An exotic domestic. You were definitely an exotic domestic cat.
See?
There you go.
It fits.
It might be ocelot. Holy cow. This podcast is spiraling.
All right.
But in the goodness.
Last one, Travis.
If I don't get to pick my own, I'm going Raptor-esque.
Bird.
Yep.
I definitely had bird on my list, but not the best bird.
Not the best bird.
When I think of when I'm trying to apply animal characteristics to the things that you do, the what is chicken?
Is it chicken?
What?
But I do that more as a funny thing that we've derived.
I think
from
that
people.
there is a part of your personality that is
That's very much.
You hear mumbling
suppressed.
or something in the background, and then you just no, I need to know what that is.
I think
What?
so.
Yeah, there is.
So the one that I was gonna go with was hummingbird, which is a little more romantic than chicken.
Oh, you like hummingbird?
Because hummingbirds never sit still. They're like. Right? And then they're like, this flower sucks. Next flower, and they go to the next flower, and that's very much like Travis, where we'll be doing something, and hey Travis, I need you to tear down this drywall off this section of the wall, and next thing I know, he's getting snacks.
Yes.
And I'm and he loves snacks.
Yep.
I love
loves
trees.
them, and hummingbirds are all about that sweet nectar.
Yeah,
I definitely feel like it's a bird of some kind, but yeah.
I was definitely going for something much more gallant, like a falcon. But
no,
it seems that
falcons are super.
You were
focused.
allowed as a falcon, right?
Yeah, he's
the
bird fits because
right?
when Travis enters the gym, because he's like, there's a bird screaming.
What actually makes that people think it's an eagle, but it's not. What bird actually makes the There's a noise it's on the Stephen on the Colbert Report or whatever.
Yeah.
Remember that kiicks that off, and they show an eagle, but they make that noise, but it's not actually an eagle. It's some other bird. Mm. But that's okay.
But falcons are also super solitary, and you're not. You're a very social guy.
Yeah, I'm not super solitary, but
you're definitely a bird because you flit around.
I think it's gotta be a bird.
You like to see everything, and then little bit of movement. You're like, what?
I do notice movement. The vision thing is definitely there. Looking for things, hunting things is important to me, and I just have bird facial features, right? Very long nose, narrow. People be like, oh,
maybe it's a crow.
Why would it be? They're dark.
Crows are pretty smart though, and they do like to. They like to like grab things. They like sometimes they just like to annoy people. They're like smart. They're social. They flip from thing to thing. Sometimes they just like to stand on top of things and scream.
Yeah. That's a possibility. I feel like crow is
I
like.
kind of feel like Travis is just like, nah, go do that. And that's what crows are doing to me all the time. They're just like,
Go away.
Go ahead.
I mean, yeah. The crow.
Oh, you know what? I feel like is a better is Kevin from Up. That's what I feel like he's good.
No, I don't know. I haven't watched Up enough.
Oh, you can watch Up, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm gonna watch it again
like
to see.
Because Justin's a little Boy Scout.
There has to be a better bird. You get ibex.
I'm definitely
ibex
the old guy.
You use an ocelot.
Don't bother me.
No, yeah, you need a better bird.
You gotta get a better bird, and time is waiting on the podcast. Animals, Cullen, what do you got? You got bird.
Toucan?
No.
You just
a tropical bird. A tropical bird might work.
Tropical birds are okay, but I feel like we're missing. There's definitely in the character. There's definitely leadership aspects in it because that's something I've always been involved in.
Yeah, crow or raven.
A raven.
Yeah. Ravens are close, but they're so dark. I'm not dark. I'm definitely like a daylight guy.
Yeah, but
man, yeah, I don't know. I have to think more. I don't think I'm gonna be able to get it on the podcast.
You're gonna get it. All right.
Not by the podcast.
Well, we have to think about it more because ibex is pretty dope.
From regular listeners, you can comment what you think Travis's personality trait is.
Guess the bird, especially if you know me, and then we will send you if we pick it. Or you guys, I won't be the only. I would definitely want to vote because I'm not taking toucan or a.
Hey, you don't get to pick your spirit animal. It picks you.
You clearly picked ibex, sir. Like we get narrow, and then you can settle in.
But I stated it, and you agree.
Okay, well you better be using your taste polarity in this decision. It better be an awesome bird. So we were looking for the most awesome bird.
What bird denies its own nature? Like what bird?
I don't deny my own nature.
He's doing it right now. He's like, that's not me.
There's no way. Okay, we gotta wrap it up. But if you pick the good bird.
Well, don't steer.
The good bird.
This is the right bird.
It's like Donald Trump. If you pick the best bird and you put it in the comments, we'll send you a T-shirt.
Oh man.
Yeah, no, if you comment and we all read it and we're like,
that's the bird.
We'll send you a shirt.
But it's definitely a bird, right? That's what I'm feeling.
I think so, but then you like to kick things and...
Dude, that's my dew claws.
It's true, they do like to do that.
Right?
No, I've never seen you do that before.
What?
Parrot.
No, that's too much. That's too much copying. Anyway, the podcast has, and if you have your animal figured out that you feel like helps you, then let us know too because it's cool. I think when I hear people, I think being able to articulate yourself and sort of tie it to characteristics. Even sometimes people do different analogies, right? It's not like always an animal. Sometimes people do, well, this is my like nature element or whatever. I'm like the Fig Newton or something. I don't know. I've seen it.
That was an example, not.
That was an example. Yeah, I don't know if I've met anybody who.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch you next time.
Yes. Bailing out. We're in too deep. Cullen's gonna pass out anyway from laughter.
Big Newton.
All right, bye guys.